Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Man Mouth. Before I get to the crew and the topics, I'm wearing my USF shirt. Why am I wearing it? Because my old neck of the woods, Tampa, is getting hit, and they're getting hard because of Hurricane Milton. So all my deepest prayers and safety to a lot of the folks in my old neck of the woods, my alma mater, and everywhere around there, Tampa Bay area, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, you name it. So my heart is with them. With that said, let's introduce the crew. We have Candy Epling. Welcome back, Candy.
Thanks. The official word is it did hit Siesta Key just a little while ago. So it is moving and progressing, but it hit as a 3. So hopefully everybody heeded the precautions and took the necessary precautions and is okay.
I'll say one thing. Siesta Key, if you've never been there, is one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been to with that incredible white sand. So George Eichhorn's back for another round. We did the Motor City Mad Mouse show earlier, and he's back for our show, the Sports Exchange. Welcome back, George.
Thank you. Good to be on with all of you tonight.
And last but not least, our Sports Exchange regular on Wednesday nights, JB Ellis. Welcome back, JB.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here. Hopefully everyone's safe down in South Florida, and hopefully the people in Central and North Florida are well as good.
Very good. All right, well, let's talk about what's going on. We're going to talk about the Vanderbilt Commodores' unbelievable upset over Alabama. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to tell you some interesting things that have come out of there. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. Everybody else is, so will we. Of course, it doesn't hurt. We have a Wisconsin girl on here, ajhinch, otherwise known as Albert Einstein. And we'll talk about samdarnold, Jessicacampbell, and I have a couple scores that we're going to pass along to you as well. We have no updates on the Kansas City Yankees game. I'm sure we'll have them by the end of the night. Candy's watching it. I'm in the studio. With that said, what happens when a team defeats a top 5 ranked team, as Vanderbilt did to Alabama 40-35? And they did it for the first time in their history, folks. The Vanderbilt Commodores defeat Alabama 40-35 in Music City, the first time they've ever defeated a top 5 team. Here's what happens out there, okay? The goalposts get dragged to Broadway Street. Vanderbilt is auctioning items from the win at $1,000 plus for 4 or 8-inch piece of goalpost, $7,000 for a personalized game helmet, $1,000 plus for individual pylons, and $2,600 plus for personalized game ball. My goodness. All right, Candy, what's your take on this opportunity that Vanderbilt can cash in on a little bit of history?
Well, they also have to pay their fine because their fans and they did field storming. They were fined $100,000 as a result of it. So they got to pay all that money. That money they got to come up with. So selling all these little pieces will help them with that fine. But kudos to them for a monumental win, a program possibly changing win, because that will bring eyes and maybe more recruits to their program when they start recruiting for next year. Kudos to them. They dominated is what I mean, if I remember correctly, like they had the ball more, they did more first downs, they just played a really good game. Now, did Alabama look past them? Possibly, but it's not like they have a tough opponent the next week. Did they take them lightly? Possibly. But way to go, Vanderbilt. Go ahead.
Yeah, you got Nashville. Of course, everybody knows that Vanderbilt is located in the heart of downtown Nashville. And anytime something big happens, they could party with the best of them. George Eichhorn?
Yeah, it was quite a win. I mean, it's very significant. The one stat that stood out to me was 0-60. 0-60 all time versus AP top 5 teams before that upset on Saturday. The longest such streak in the poll era since 1936. I mean, Commodores, really, that was just an unbelievable win. I mean, the fan just went crazy afterwards, carrying that goalpost, like you said, down the street. And, it was just an incredible performance. There's just nothing like it, in college sports. When you see something like this, it's one of those things that's over the top. And obviously, we've seen upsets. Appalachian State beat University of Michigan.
Right.
but that was in Michigan. But this was on your home field. And what a job Vanderbilt did. Just a tremendous win over a program that, let's face it, has been one of the top-notch programs for over a dozen years now, the Alabama Crimson Tide. But, yeah, hats off to them. I know the fans got kind of loony and crazy, and now you're trying to make some money off of it. But NCAA, of course, had to fine the program. They did that within days of that, but that's something that they don't condone. But Vanderbilt, what an upset, yeah, for Alabama. First win versus the number one team and everything else that went with it. So great upset, great game. And obviously, the whole state of Tennessee celebrating that one.
Well, let's face the reality. Find $100,000. You mean to tell me you can't make up $100,000 with all this stuff? When you look at that goalpost and what they're charging for these things, seriously, really? I mean, you're going to definitely be able to make up that money. They'll end up turning a profit. But I think the biggest thing that's going to end up happening there with Vanderbilt is they'll start taking that program seriously, and they're not going to look at it as a bottom feeder in the Southeastern Conference. Turn over to Joe.
So former head coach Nick Saban on September 20th on the Pat McAfee show said, the only place you play in the SEC that's not hard to play is Vanderbilt, because when you play there at Vanderbilt, you have more fans there than they have. But guess what, Nick? Your former team went into Vanderbilt after getting lucky to hold on and beat Georgia, and you lost. You were almost never in the game. You had a horrible effort, and good for Vanderbilt. It's great to see. They're known as a baseball school for sports. They're way more into their academics. It's a top academic school. Football's never been a top priority, but they've done a great thing with the program this year. They've performed well, and good. Forget about Bama. They don't need to win anymore. Bye. And Nick, maybe before you say something stupid, you think next time.
Well, that's why he has a new career he's working with ESPN on their game day crew. I will add one piece of note here. James Franklin, who used to be the Vanderbilt coach, is now the head coach over at Penn State. He hasn't done anything at Penn State either, but Vanderbilt, you're right. So you bring up a good point. They are known for being a baseball school. All I have to do is look at David Price and some of the other players that they produced. Vanderbilt's a heck of a baseball program. But hopefully this is the type of win here that maybe people will take the football program just a bit more seriously. Well, obviously, it's been a big story the last couple of days. So I'm going to ask everyone, y'all, did Aaron Rodgers have a hand in getting Robert Saleh fired with the New York Jets? I've heard a lot of different reports. He denied that he had anything to do with it on the Pat McAfee show. That's where they usually have an opportunity to talk. And Pat can get a little bit out of it. Then again, Pat McAfee's paying to have him on there anyways. And we all know that Woody Johnson seemed to have it in for Robert Saleh. But you know what, Joe, we'll start it off with you on this one.
So first off, Robert Saleh was not a good head coach. He seemed like a good guy, but not a good head coach. He should have been fired anyway. Secondly, it was obvious Aaron Rodgers did not like Robert Saleh. His body language towards him, his attitude towards him, his play throughout the season, they just weren't on the same page. My opinion is the GM, Aaron Rodgers, had Robert Saleh fired. He just wasn't happy with the team's performance. He figured that he needed a change. And, he went to the owner, and this is what ended up coming out. Aaron Rodgers has been known to dictate change on the team. They signed all the guys he wanted, and I'm sure they'll soon to get Devanteadams in a trade because
Aaron
Rodgers is playing GM, not playing quarterback very well, but he's playing GM like a pro. And the way the Jets treated Robert Saleh was pretty horrible. Again, I don't think Saleh was the answer. I don't think he was a good coach, but there's ways to handle things. And the Jets, as usual, proved that they're a joke of a franchise. And, they moved up the defensive coordinator. No surprise there either, because Rodgers' buddy is the OC, Hackett, the offensive coordinator. And if you make him the head coach and things don't go well, got to blame Hackett and he's got to go. But if we move up to DC, hey, we have a new scapegoat when the team doesn't perform because they're not going to perform. They're not a good team.
Right.
No coaching. Aaron Rodgers is past his prime, and all he does is cry and do stupid things like this. So, he's has a, for all the talent in the world that he's had a very disappointing career. He may be an MVP, all about me guy, but one Super Bowl with all the opportunities he had, he should have had at least 3. And I can point to definitely one that was his fault, if not more. So, waste of talent.
Okay. Well, no, I'm sure you're not the only one that thinks that way. Maybe there's somebody on this show that doesn't, but we'll get to her last. All right, George. Let's not lose sight of the fact that, Woody Johnson had Saleh escorted out of the building, right? Okay. So I don't know if that's normal or not, but he was escorted. Anyways, turn it over to George, who lives in an area where Robert Saleh is known in Dearborn, Michigan.
That's right. That's right. So I think he is a good coach. Now, is he a good head coach? That still remains to be seen. The Lions were looking at Saleh before they settled on Campbell, and that's a whole other story. But I agree with what you said, JB. I mean, you could tell by the body language, these two guys were not going to get along. They were not getting along on the sidelines. Obviously, the play calling, anything that got under Rodgers' skin, obviously became something for him to poke his head coach in the stomach with, or go eyeball to eyeball with. I mean, those scenes were bad. Those scenes on the sidelines were not good. And, this is just it. I mean, Rodgers is at the end of his career. He's extremely disappointed. Obviously, the Jets are extremely disappointed with what happened with the injury last year and the fact they're not doing anything this year to speak of. And it is a bad situation. And, sometimes people lose jobs that don't deserve. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I mean, I'm not going to make that, but he could be a bad head coach. But Robert has done a nice job where he's been as far as an assistant. But that being said, yeah, it's a tough situation there. And the ownership, you're right, is just they look like buffoons right now. They really do. And there's nothing they can do. They got to just play this one out with Rodgers at the helm, but it's not looking good at all. It's a bad scene. And, of course, I think Rodgers can deny all he wants. He didn't have anything to do with it, but we all know he did. At least I think so. And, most of the people are going to be thinking that, but it right now, it looks pretty bleak for them to turn this thing around. We'll see. It's a long season, but we'll see. I don't have much faith.
Okay, well, Natalie, we'll turn it over to Candy.
Where to start?
Yeah, I've been waiting for your take on this for a long time, and now we've got it.
So it comes out that Aaron Rodgers had a conversation the night before Robert Saleh was fired with the owner, with Woody. A 5-minute conversation. Oh, I just wanted to check how you were feeling, because I know you injured your ankle or hurt your ankle. A 5-minute conversation on that? Come on. Really? Here's your star quarterback, or apparently your star quarterback, that you have built this team or the offense around, at least. And you invested a lot of money in him. And let's face it, everybody thought when they put all those stars on the team that the team was going to do well. Well, just because you put stars on a team does not mean they cohesively work together, that they don't have too many egos or what that might get in the way. Do I think Aaron Rodgers had something to say about it? Oh, I sure do, because Robert Saleh was, if he hadn't already, he was going to relieve Nathaniel Hackett of the play calling duties. And here's my take on him relieving him of the play calling duties. I have a feeling Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers do the play calling themselves. Whether Nathaniel lets Aaron call a lot of the plays, I'm guessing was happening. And obviously it wasn't working. But if Nathaniel Hackett's not doing the play calling, and now all of a sudden Robert Saleh is going to do all the play calling, Aaron doesn't get along with Robert. he's saying, oh, I do. Robert's a family man. Well, Robert could be a family man, but let's face it. The one sideline exchange that we all can't get out of our sight is when they went in for the hug and he turned away. No, there's something definitely with that relationship that was very strained. And when you have a star MVP quarterback, you can't make him unhappy. The owner's choice, the only choice he had to keep one or the other. He couldn't keep both because obviously it wasn't working. And today is a win now situation, not a win later. So they had to get the results now. They're not going to give up MVP quarterback Aaron Rodgers. So his only choice was to get rid of the head coach. Is Robert Saleh a good head coach? Remains to be seen. In the right situation, maybe yes. He's a good, very good defensive coach. But just because you're a good defensive coach does not mean you're going to be, does not necessarily translate to a good head coach. Will he get another situation, another try? I do believe he will. Will he succeed? There aren't many people that succeed in the Jets' dysfunctional organization. So he could totally succeed in the right situation. Aaron Rodgers had everything to do with this. Aaron Rodgers had to do with it back when Mike McCarthy was fired from the Packers. I truly believe he has a hand in this, even though he resents people for saying that. Come on, Aaron. We're all smarter than that. Give us a little bit of credit. Yes, you had something to do with this firing.
Well, one thing we can't forget about this whole thing about Aaron Rodgers is, I don't know about any of you ever heard of the word immunized before? Really? Seriously? Immunized? Never heard of it. Tell Aaron Rodgers brother, right? Think about it. And I think that he probably will get a mulligan and maybe an opportunity to get a head coach somewhere else, because I'll tell you, Todd Bowles was a great coach, and he ended up recreating himself in Tampa, and he left that Jet situation. So I don't know how quickly he'll get it. He's getting paid $20,000 a day to not do anything anyway. So you might as well be able to take the money, finish out the year collecting paychecks from Woody Johnson. And of course, we all know darn well it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, before they get Devanteadams, because he's out this week with he's on the injury report, and it's unlikely he'll play. And the Raiders probably don't want to put him out there knowing they're ready to get rid of him anyway. So why bother to put him on the field? But I'm going to go back to what Joe said. I want to make it very clear that what he said really meets along the lines of where my thinking is. He's underachieved in his career, and he should have more than one Super Bowl in his pocket than what he has. He's a statistical guy who's obviously good for fantasy football. When it comes to reality football, no. Okay. So, I'll trust you guys. I have a feeling Rodgers played a bigger role in it. Then again, superstars generally play a big role in coaches getting fired. This isn't the first time this has ever happened. I'll take it back a long ways. When Paul Westhead got fired from the Lakers, and a guy by the name of Pat Riley got hired, and who orchestrated that? A guy by the name of Magic Johnson. Ever heard of him? And the list goes on and on. So superstar players earning a lot of money, they put people in the stands, and Aaron Rodgers is past his prime anyways. I mean, the only thing I'll say to Saleh's credit is it's not like he had the best quarterbacks to work with when he was there either. Okay, you did have Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, just to name a few. But by no means am I taking a position that has anything to do with what we're doing now. The reality is Robert Saleh is an excellent defensive coordinator. He did well with the 49ers. He'll do well wherever he lands again. But I do think he'll get another head coaching job. I don't know how quickly he'll get it, but time will tell. All right, with that said, before we get to the Tigers, I want to go to a station break with Candy, because this one's going to take a while. Or actually, you know what? I won't. I'll stay out with a Jet subject, and then we'll go to the station break. Let's talk about the Samdarnold curse. And Robert Saleh's first game as head coach, Darnold's Carolina Panthers won 19-14 on September of 2021. Let's move the clock up to October of 2024. Sam defeated Saleh 23-17 as a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Saleh was fired yesterday. All right. Anybody want to comment on that? Candy?
I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Like, yes, it's a coincidence he started in the beginning and at the end against, but it was two different teams. Again, I just think Robert Saleh is a very defensive coach, but yet he couldn't get his defense to beat Sam Darnold. And not that I would say Sam Darnold is an outstanding quarterback, but Minnesota has been playing pretty tough, pretty good ball as of late.
Okay, fair enough. All right,
Yeah.
George.
Well, yeah. I mean, that game was played in London, correct? And,
Yes.
and the Vikings 23-17 winners. You look at the stat sheet. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, here you go. 2 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions. I mean, you just can't do that. You're a veteran, you're a pro, you think you're a Hall of Famer, which you probably will get in. But the fact of the matter is, you got a guy like Sam Darnold who just plays consistent. Granted, he didn't even complete 50% of his passes, Darnold, and they still won the game. But he only had 1 interception. All I'm saying is, Rodgers, you just can't show up and expect everything to work. And I know that they tried to design this whole thing around him, and like you said, build the offense behind him and around him. But that was a clear example. And, Sam Darnold, oh, come on. You get rid of Kirk Cousins? Not in my wildest imagination why I think Minnesota would be 5-0 right now. But they are. And Darnold is doing a hell of a job. But, yeah, he got the best of Rodgers back when you said, Scott, and now he did it again. Even though it was across the pond, didn't matter, And again, another example of Rodgers being past his prime.
All right, Joe.
So, I mean, the Jets beat the Jets. Aaron Rodgers beat the Jets. If you watch the game or listen to the game, the Minnesota offense was moving along phenomenally. And then Aaron Jones got hurt. And it changed their offense. They were horrible after that. They couldn't run the ball. They didn't move the ball very well the rest of the game. The Jets were down, made a little bit of a comeback. Rodgers threw a pick 6 early in the game, threw 3 interceptions. He just didn't look good at all. He hasn't looked good except for maybe a couple of minutes this season. The fact that it was Sam Darnold, the fact what happened, we saw Aaron Jones as the key to that offense because once he went down, the offense totally changed. They couldn't move the ball. The Jets defense, which is supposed to be really good, is lackluster. It just, from what I understand, Saleh wasn't calling the defensive plays this season, and you can see that the defense wasn't up to the caliber it's been the last couple of years. So that's probably one of the reasons. So this was just, on every angle, just bad for this team. They just can't stay out of their own way. When they have a game that they can win, where they got fortunate, and no one ever wants to see a player get hurt, but Jones went down and their offense totally changed, and they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't score. Here you have a chance to take advantage of it. You bring in a superstar, one of the best in the game, supposedly, and all he does is throw the ball away 3 times. It's just bad.
Well, number one, Aaron Rodgers missed a lot of the off-season stuff anyways, didn't he? As I understand, he had different reasons for going other places. I also believe he became the 9th quarterback to hit the 60,000 mark. And again, nowadays that mark isn't as, big a deal with all the rules aimed toward the passing attack. But I think another thing that you have to do is for Sam Darnold, the best thing that could have ever happened was going to Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, who's a proven coach that obviously works well with quarterbacks. You can't really lose sight of that either. But I just find it ironic that Sam Darnold beat Saleh 3 years ago and then his final game, the first game. So it's just interesting in sports when you come up with some statistics that are ironic that you have to put out whatever reason you get to them. That's another point. That's for people like us to talk about. Now I'm going to the station break. Anybody else want to add anything to it before Candy works her magic with the station break?
Nope. In November, the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. The foreword is written by none other than George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. It talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the sports writing industry and how the media has changed over those 40 years. You can also find a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find a link to our merchandise store. Go buy some South Florida Tribune merchandise or Motor City Madmouth. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Let's see, what else is there at Tribune South? And back to you, Scott.
Well done, Candy. All right, well, you know what? I'm going to hit the Tigers subject last because I think this one will, George and I have a lot to say about it. But how about Jessica Campbell makes history as the NHL's first female assistant coach in the Seattlekraken season opener? You can thank danbylsma for that. danbylsma worked with their top affiliate and had Jessica working there. And I still think danbylsma should have gotten the Red Wings job, but that's for another day. So, George, what are your thoughts about Jessica Campbell making history as the NHL's first female assistant coach?
Well, that was just a great, shall we say, victory for women's athletics, but women coming into a totally men's kind of game, let's face it. But hockey has, in the past 10, 15 years, had tremendous growth for the female hockey players, the female leagues. The Olympics obviously showcased women's hockey. But for her to come and work her way up into an all-male dominated specialty, which is coaching, I the hats off to her. What a tremendous thing that was. And danbylsma deserves credit. Seattle deserves credit. But I'll tell you what, she deserves the most credit because that has to be a tough situation, only because we've heard these things before. Guys will be guys. Or guys will say what guys say. I mean, not anymore, because obviously I would imagine that the situation will hopefully get better. Well, she won't be the only one. And also for officiating. The National Hockey League has not done, and Major League Baseball too, they've not put a female official onto the ice or onto the field, both the MLB and for regular season action I'm talking about. I know MLB has done some preseason stuff and exhibition. But no, I think it's great, Scott. I think it's really a good opportunity for her. She's a trendsetter now, and obviously other female coaches that love the sport of hockey, I think now will have at least a better chance now that she's broken through that ceiling.
Turn it over to Joe.
It's 2024. We're getting closer to 2025. It's sad that we still talk about first and we're amazed, and it's a great achievement for the woman. I'm glad for her. I'm sure she put a lot of work into her craft and got where she deserves to be. But it's sad that we're still on these. This is the first time it's happened. Because I'm sure to her, she just wants to go out and do her job, and she's worked hard to get the job she has. So I applaud her for getting where she is. And good for her.
All right, well, we have a woman on the crew, and now we'll turn it over to Candy.
JB, I completely agree with you. The fact that we are talking about now that it's still a first for a woman to be in as a coach in this sport, or a first for a female to do this. I don't know. 2024, it shouldn't be first. It should be okay. It's a norm. It's something that we've heard of before, because after all, it's the best person for the job. Why we have to label it's got to be a first for women. It can't be women. You can't do this. You can't do that. As long as people play the sport, and she's played the sport before, so that and she's done her due. Kudos that at least it's finally happened. I mean, I want to hear more of this, and but I still can't believe it. We're talking about that it's the first woman to be an assistant coach in the NHL like that. Do I want to see more of it? Sure. Women also have to want to do it. And then there have to be people out there that are willing to let them do it. And knowing and interviewing well for who the best person is for the job. There shouldn't be discrimination one way or the other, whether we have to give a female a job because we want to be politically correct. But in the same breath, whoever's the best person for the job should get it. It shouldn't matter sex, it shouldn't matter race, religion, any of that.
Well, I think in the case of Jessica, what's nice about it was she worked with the guy already, danbylsma. He brought her up with her, so at least, he felt comfortable bringing her. So in that case, albeit it's a first, the way it's labeled a first, okay, right. In his mind, she was the best candidate, and that's what goes back. Now, let me relate to something I've dealt with before with the Miami Marlins, where you have Kim Ng, first general manager. Boy, that was great publicity, but all she did was do a great job. And then when the Marlins wanted to go ahead and move her down and bring somebody else in, she walked away. And you haven't seen another female general manager. But Kim Ng's a great baseball mind. She is. And she got the Marlins to the playoffs one year, and she did a whale of a job. It's just too bad it ended so quickly because the Marlins went in a different direction. But I'm happy for Jessica. I just hope that there's other females that get the same opportunity as well. All right, well, we're going to talk about the Tigers at long last year. And ajhinch works his miracle again, or magic, whatever you want to call it, as the Tigers use 6 pitchers to defeat the Cleveland Guardians 3-0 to take a 2-1 lead in the MLB Division Series. A record crowd of 44,885 at Comericapark. Parker Meadows put himself in the same sentence with Al Kaline by hitting safely in all 5 of his first postseason at-bats. That occurred in 1968. To me, it's just unbelievable. If Abner Doubleday saw the way ajhinch is managing baseball, he would turn over in his grave. I'm a guy that strongly believes in the complete games. I really do. We're never going to see many more of them anyway. I don't believe in combined no-hitters. I'm too old school for any of that stuff. But yet, ajhinch, and I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again, Kevin Cash must be looking at, I started this opening business, and now ajhinch is taking it to levels beyond anybody else's comprehension. Really? Seriously? Unbelievable, AJ. You're playing on house money anyways. And I think what I've learned about it, being a baseball guy, is you don't get to see guys on their second or third at-bats when you have a fresh arm in there every inning or two. JB, take it from there. I mean, I don't know what you call this here, but I'm just going to call it the genius of ajhinch and Abner Doubleday. I don't know what he's thinking somewhere out in heaven.
So, I mean, it's a great concept if you have the quality arms to do it. If you could throw 6-7 guys out there and you have a deep enough bullpen that you're not messed up the next day by doing that, it's a great idea, but you have to have quality arms out there, and they all got to pitch well. It's only about getting 3 to 6 outs and just running through the lineup. Tigers are doing what nobody thought they would do back in July, back in August. Now they made people believers in September. They took a 2-1 lead, big win today in Game 3. The only thing I could say is they better win tomorrow. You don't want to go back to Cleveland for a Game 5. Take care of business. They'll probably have Schoolville pitch Game 5, right?
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Probably.
I mean, so it's not so much pressure on them because they know that at least they're going to have the top pitcher in baseball pitching in Game 5. But you still don't want to have to waste him. You want to have him ready for Game 1 of the championship series. But what an exciting story. What a great job they're doing in Detroit.
Let me tell you, the Cleveland Guardians have gone 20 innings in a row without scoring a run. They go out there, and I probably have a feeling that my researcher probably dug it up, so I better keep my mouth shut and turn it over to George Eichhorn. But, she recovers well quick. What an incredible run of scoreless baseball on both sides. All right, you know what, Candy? Go ahead and take it from there. Icorn will probably do what I do and talk over whatever's left.
That's okay. George can go. You had George first, so.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, something that, that Scott had mentioned about how many innings, but don't forget the Tigers, they went 17 innings without scoring a run, losing the first game, of course, 7-0, and not getting the runs until the 8th inning in game 2. But that's beside the point. The point is that the Tigers have won 2 of this series so far. And you're right, ajhinch and chrisfetter, his pitching coach, and the rest of his staff have done a tremendous job. I mean, we've been around baseball long enough, the 4 of us. We know. I mean, you try getting kids in there, you try them out, you bring them up from the minor leagues, and you see if they could do anything. But I've never seen a team put together guys like this in the bullpen. Not in Detroit, we haven't, and pull this off. Like you said, Scott, I mean, Doubleday's turning over in his grave. I mean, they and then they trade away their number 2 starter, Flaherty, to the LA Dodgers. Okay, but they get a good guy in return named Trey Sweeney to help solidify the infield. All that being said, and then you got Casey Mize with an injury, you got Matt Manning with an injury, and you got Reese Olson got hurt. So your other starters were nowhere to be found. And then you go to this bullpen concept. I mean, the Tigers are just doing something that's never been, like you said, Scott, never been seen before to this extent in baseball, and they're doing it. And these kids are coming in, and right situations, they're pitching their head, they're pitching their head out.
Yeah, they're pitching their tails off. Yeah, don't forget Kiter Montero. All right, we better turn over to Candy, otherwise 2 of us are going to be in her doghouse anyway. So go ahead, Candy. I feel bad that I stole your thunder, but knowing her, she's probably researching anyway stuff we don't already have anyhow.
You've stolen my thunder before. I don't get too mad, but the Tigers, let's face it, we've all said this. The team that gets hot at the end and near the playoffs is the team. It's the team that it's hard to beat them, because if you get hot, and the Tigers have been baseball's hottest team the past 2 months. They will have their first chance to advance to the playoffs since 2013 on Thursday night in Game 4. Yes, Cleveland has gone 20 straight innings without scoring. The fans were all fired up. It was the largest crowd in ComericaPark's 25-year history. It's the first time Detroit has recorded 2 shutouts in a postseason series. It's also the first time since the 1905 World Series that the first 3 games of a postseason were all shutouts. It's great to see, because let's face it, nobody gave Detroit a chance. They were all saying, "Oh, you should trade away your best pitcher, get a lot for him at the trade deadline." And you guys decided, no, let's not. We're not going to do that. And now look what you've put together. Look what you've strung together. A team that's playing like they have nothing to lose. Let's face it. The pressure is not on them. The pressure is on almost all the other teams, but not the Detroit Tigers. That helps propel them. And let's face it, we've all talked about, yes, if the starting pitcher is on and he's hitting, you don't want to take him out early. But there's also something to be said when you leave pitchers in there too long, or the batters come up the next time around, they've seen them, they're more used to them. So keeping fresh arms in there was brilliant. I mean, it as long as, like JB says, as long as you have pitchers to go for the next game, great win for you guys. I mean, I give my hats off to you.
All right, let's go to the chat room. Jay, welcome back. It says Cleveland is really, really good. Yeah, well, they are really good. They won the divisional title for sure. All right, let's continue with Jay. He's one of our new friends of the show. Okay, when does the pressure hit them? What's their ceiling? Can they beat the Dodgers? TBD. The only thing I have to base it on the Dodgers, they did beat them 2 out of 3 with a much different group, assuming that they make the World Series. I don't know. Let's see. Dodgers are in a dogfight of their own with the San Diego Padres. The last I saw that they were winning. So a lot of good questions, Jay. We'll find out over time goes on. But yeah, you bring up some interesting points, Candy. I mean, the question is, many people looked at the Tigers as sellers, is what they were doing for a while. And ajhinch proved them wrong. He said, you are not trading Tarek Skubal under no uncertainty. They told that to the Tigers fresh. And they didn't. So they moved a lot of veterans out, brought a lot of young players in. And this guy's doing his best managing job ever. Forget about that 2017 World Series championship he won in Houston. This isn't a better managing job. I don't know what the heck is, because he's doing it with young guys and a patchwork pitching. I don't think that you can get away with this strategy over the course of 162 games. You'll run out of arms. But over an 8-week period, 12-week period, the way he's doing it, plus there are days off in between some of these games to accommodate TV, you can get away with it a little bit that way. And he's making the most of what he has. He's got a lot. Let's face the reality. I think Bo Brisky, George, didn't he have some arm troubles for a while? And now he's settled into a role where he's short innings. Will Beck came out of nowhere. I never even heard of this guy. And the list goes on and on. And to me, it's just when you have guys that are having arm troubles, and reduce their usage to 1 or 2 innings. And but I think the biggest thing that hopefully we'll see during the offseason is, will Chris Ilitch finally realize, that it wouldn't be a bad idea to invest in the Tigers, but spend wisely. And yes, Jay, I did end up wearing the USF shirt. I had to. My heart's in Tampa right now, even though my mind and body is with everybody else. So, got this one, pulled it. I really like the yellow one too, by the way. But will Chris Ilitch spend some money? Now he sees that this is a baseball town. Joe, anything else you want to add to this?
No, listen, I mean, it's great to see, I thought it was wild that they got shut out of game 1, and then they had 2 consecutive shutouts of Cleveland. Cleveland's a good team, but like you said, there's no pressure on the Tigers. They're not supposed to be here. All they got to do is play baseball the way they played for the last 2 months and have fun. And who knows where they end up? Can they beat, the Dodgers, as Jay asked? They can beat anybody. They have no pressure. It's all they have to do is do what they're doing. And they have Skubal for 2 games at least in every 7-game series. So that's 2 times that they probably have a really great chance of winning. So you're already kind of a 7-game series in half. They're scary. As a Yankee fan, I don't want to play them. I said that from the beginning. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to play them. And, if the Yankees could hold on and get these last 5 outs, we'll take a 2-1 lead going into tomorrow. I think Detroit's going to close it out tomorrow and get Skubal for game 1. I'm afraid if we would have to face Detroit, they're a scary team. There's something about hot teams when you're in the playoffs.
It's true. By the way, you're alluding to the fact that the New York Yankees lead the Kansas City Royals 3-2, bottom of the 8th, 1 out. So there you have it, Joe. There are your 5 outs. While I'm talking about scores, why don't we go ahead and talk about the fact that the Dodgers lead the Padres 3-0, bottom of the 2nd. And we'll segue, and let's go ahead. One of my employees shared a video of huge tornado by Wellington, Florida. Yeah, Candy obviously works not too far from there. How much does pressure matter? Being hot, of course, matters, but is pressure a real thing? I think it is. I agree with Candy, but I wonder how much it helps a team, 5, 10, 15%, etc. You know what, JB? Why don't you take a crack at that question?
So, I mean, there's no real way to quantify it as, it's this percentage, but you can see teams that just don't play well under pressure. The Dodgers are a perfect example. Their only World Series for some time came on the COVID shortened season. That was the only time they won a World Series. They get to the playoffs consistently. The Yankees consistently are in the playoffs, top teams. Aaron Judge, one of the best hitters in baseball. He was basically a contention for the Triple Crown. He gets to October, he can't hit. It's pressure. You're putting everything. Your team needs you. Everybody knows it, and you're up there and you're trying to do more than what you normally would try to do, rather than just playing your game. There's no other explanation to why. On September 29th, the guy could hit 3 home runs, and October 5th, he strikes out 3 times and can't do anything, and it's consistent throughout October.
That's what makes baseball the game it is, right? 1 minute you're high, the next minute you're low. That's why a lot of great players or athletes can't make it in this game. Michael Jordan took a crack at it and knew it was better to go out there and play basketball. And the list goes on and on. I'm not just picking on MJ. By any means, Jay says, JB, I hate the Yankees, but I like your take. Well, 1 out of 2 is not too bad. So we'll take it. So, and Jay said, certainly a friend of the show. Well, we do have one final score that came in. New York Mets 4-1 over Philadelphia. They won the series 3-1. Grand slam by Franciscolindor in the 6th inning, and they are off to the NLCS. I'm going to start off with Candy on this one.
So you know where I'm going to go with this one.
Absolutely. That's why you're starting off.
Most of you don't realize this, but teams that have eliminated the Brewers in the postseason. Now listen to this. Back in 1981, it was the Yankees. They defeated Milwaukee in the ALDS. They went to the World Series. In 1982, St. Louis defeated us in the World Series. In 2008, it was the Phillies that defeated us in the NLDS. They went on to the World Series. 2011, St. Louis defeated Milwaukee in the NLCS. They went on to win the World Series. In 2018, the Dodgers defeated Milwaukee in the NLCS. They went on to the World Series. 2019, the Washington Nationals defeated Milwaukee in the wild card and went on to win the World Series. In 2020, LA Dodgers defeated Milwaukee in the wild card, went on to win the World Series. In 2021, the Angels went on to win the World Series. In 2023, Arizona defeated Milwaukee in the wild card, went on to the World Series. And now 2024, the Mets. So every year the Brewers have been in the postseason and have lost. The people that knocked them out went on to the World Series. 6 of them won the World Series. So do the Mets win the World Series? I don't know, but I mean that's a big stat. Like if you talk about every single team that has taken down the Brewers have gone on to at least be in the World Series. I'm guessing there's not many teams that can say that. And yes, unfortunately, I have to say that. And unfortunately, we're on the wrong side of it because we've never won in the World Series. But so the Mets are going to be a tough out. And the Mets are playing hot, kind of like the Tigers at this point. They had to play to get in, and they're playing hot now. So watch out.
Why don't you just admit it, Candy? On a 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, I was the only one on that panel that went out there and picked the Mets over your Brewers. Everybody else had to go ahead, had to pick the Brewers, and I decided to prove a point on Monday night and wear a tie on the show. Yes, Joe, a tie on the show. It was my thinking man's tie, just to prove my other cohorts wrong. Eichhorn, was smart. He decided to go to Monday Night Football. Wasn't a part of that barrage. So.
But I would have picked Milwaukee too, Scott.
Yeah. So here, let's go back to Jay. Okay, I love this guy, Scott. I heard Howard Cosell and Herm Edwards were both Tiger fans. What's your take on the Tigers now? You know what, Jay? I'll just say this, brother. I love you, and that's it. I'm not saying anymore. I need this voice for something else because you know where my head's at. He's a fan of the show. What do you expect, Candy? I'm not saying it. The facts are saying it. Well, that's true. Sometimes facts do tell the story. So, all right. Well, you're the best. All right, Jay, go. Not Jay, not George. Well, it sounds the same. Jay, George, whatever.
Yeah, basically what Candy's saying is her Brewers are the launch pad. Thank you, Jay. It is kind of a oddity. It really is, and it's kind of sad. But, you mentioned about the expectations were on the Mets a year ago, remember? When they signed a couple of guys named Verlander and Scherzer. And we know where that ended up. So I'm not here to say that it's a total surprise. I mean, with the current pitching staff, it's probably a surprise, but they've been grooming this team. Same with San Diego. San Diego was buying talent left and right the last several years. They just couldn't get over that hump. They couldn't get over the Dodger hump, so to speak. And now the Padres, look at what a great year they're having. And you know what? Bobby Scales is one of the announcers for the Tigers, and he made an interesting point this morning on one of the Detroit shows. He says that the young people, like the young Tigers, they don't fear stuff like that. The question was, well, don't they think, oh my God, they're playing Cleveland and they were the division champs and blah, 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 and they got this pitching staff. And no, he says, no, these young kids are more fearless in sports and in baseball, that they don't worry about stuff like that. They just take it game by game and like at bat by at bat, which I know that ajhinch, preaches. But as far as the Milwaukee situation goes, I mean, that was very, very disappointing, to Brewers fans, what happened there. And it's happened before. I just don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do to get over that hump, over that line. Because, like all the stats you gave us, Candy, all the history.
Well, George, let me emphasize something here. Okay. The New York, maybe you didn't hear the score. The New York Mets 4, Philadelphia 1. They win the series. Maybe Edwin Rosario, seriously, really, Icorn, you get me going again tonight. Says, let's go Mets. Oh my God. Seriously, George, you got off topic yet again. We all know that Candy has some great information about why the Brewers are the launch pad. I get that, okay? But really, Philly trash team, yeah. The bottom line is, George, let me tell you the score again, because maybe you didn't hear it, okay? And we have this, New York Mets 4, okay, Philadelphia 1, Grand Slam, Franciscolindor hits it deep, 4 people score, and that's the end of the series, okay? Ever heard of Sterling Marte? Good player. Ever heard of J.D. Martinez? Good player, okay? Pete Alonso, who knows where he's going next, but still there.
Don't forget Iglesias.
Yeah, but evidently you did when you went off on your tangent with the Brewers. Sick the man. Really? Seriously? Come on, Icorn. How many times do I have to tell you to stay on point?
I picked Philadelphia in the World Series.
I did too, but that's not the point. I did too. A lot of people wanted to see Bryce Harper there, but I got a Bryce dingbat like you that forgot to score, and I had to tell it 4 times. All right, everybody. Evidently you did. Keep the receipts. All right. How do you like to come back from that one, JB? Me hammering Icorn yet again.
Listen, I mean, how do we schedule the Brewers to play the Yankees in the first round? Because we haven't been to the World Series in so long, I forget what it's like. But no, I mean, the Brewers are consistently a good team. You got to give the organization credit. And my thought process is, if I'm going to lose, I want to lose to whoever wins the championship anyway, because I want to lose to the best team. I don't want to lose to the guy who loses in the next round, because then we could have been in the next round. So that, I give a lot of credit for a small market team in Milwaukee. They don't have the money like they do in Chicago or New York or LA. They put out a quality product every year, and every year they're battling for the top of the division. They're playing hard. They're what the A's should have been. How Oakland kind of turned into a trash dumpster. Milwaukee, they should have just followed Milwaukee's blueprint. They don't spend millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in Milwaukee. They get quality guys, they develop them, and they play hard and well. It's a perfect example for what a mid-market, small market team should do. And there's no reason every team in MLB can't do it. But the Brewers have had tremendous success for at least the last decade consistently. And over the course of their time in Milwaukee, they've had a great showing.
Well, there's no question. Pat Murphy did a great job taking over for Craig Counsell. And you're right. Their development is unbelievable. They really are. But think about the Kansas City Royals, too, though. The Kansas City Royals had a few down years, but they have a world championship in their pocket recently. And the Kansas City Royals are considered the haves. They're mainly the have-nots, but all they do is find a way. They've won a couple championships in their history, including the most recent one. So, the Royals are still in the fight until they end up out. Milwaukee, we'll see what happens. I guess the biggest thing you're going to have to find out was, can they retain Willie Adames, who's up for a big payday? And Andy's nodding her head. No, it's great. We got some great years out of Willie, but who are we going to bring in to take his place? That's just the way the nature of the beast goes out there. I think what cost the Brewers in the playoffs this year, however, was not having Christian Yelich in the lineup. I think you needed his bat there. I really do. But that's just my opinion. But again, Edwin Rosario, we can definitely say respect the Mets. We know who you're pulling for because you made it loud and clear. and they're saying, stop crying, Philly cheesesteak fans. I guess he don't like Philadelphia. So Candy says, no way. I like some of these chats. These are really worth putting up there. They really, really are, because they're starting to get to the point where comical, and I love comic on this show. All right. Well, you know what? We'll give you a couple of updates here, and then we'll call it a night here. This is the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth. Please be joined with Candy Epling, George Eichhorn, and JB Ellis. We do this every Wednesday night. Some scores to bring up here right up to date. New York Yankees 3-2 over the Royals. Top of the ninth, 1 out. The Dodgers are taking it to the Padres 5-0. Top of the third. And as we just talked about, the Mets 4, Philadelphia Phillies 1. They're moving on to the NLCS. The Detroit Tigers won earlier today 3-0. They could wrap up the series tomorrow at Comericapark. That's at 6:08 p.m. Eastern time. The Red Wings game will be moved to 8 o'clock, and it'll be very, very busy there. So with that said, okay, Jay did buy one book, and he's actually has another one coming. So he wants to actually know the name of your book, George. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and let Candy take us home.
So the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Scott's book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find Scott's book. You can actually find George's book, because George writes for us too, and he includes links at the end of his articles with his book. And let's see, what else? We have a merchandise store where you can get t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, the South Florida Tribune or Motor City Madmouth. Go to our website, get that, buy one today. Read the writings of all these fine gentlemen on this panel. They've all written for the South Florida Tribune. Go check out our website. Check out some of the pictures I've taken. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange. Thursday night is Fire Up. Get ready to be fired up. Come see my show, as Scott would call it, my country club show. So you got to tune in tomorrow night, as opposed to Scott running the show. But previously, preceding tonight's Sports Exchange, there was on nofilter.net, Scott, George, and Jeremy did the Motor City Madmouth show. So go check it out. Scott, back to you. You can tell everybody.
Okay, well, number one, JB is a writer for Sideline Sports as well as the South Florida Tribune. Come a long way. You know, here's a guy that accepts coaching, and JB is doing a good job. I don't know if I'll ever get him to a book at all, but right now he writes pretty good, solid stories, and I'm proud that we've got him that far, and I'm sure he'll continue to get better as time goes on, depending on the events that he decides to go to. So, you know, doing a good job. Managed Sideline Sports does an even better job with that platform, and we're proud to be partnered up with Sideline Sports and JB Ellis as well. And George Eichhorn, well, he's my whipping boy. He has been for 45 years, so that's okay. Although, I don't know, maybe at the beginning I was his whipping boy, but not very long, because I had to put all the fires that he couldn't put out. But I love having Eichhorn on there. I don't think I'd ever have a show anytime when he's not around. I mean, he's just unbelievable. So, Andy, what can I say? That's all I can say. She puts it all together, and she does everything I can't and wish I couldn't do anyway, so it doesn't make any difference anyhow. So, but yeah, the book was a lot of fun to write. My plan is to write a second one. Hopefully start it by the end of the year, beginning of next year. We can get another one out. I feel as though I have some unfinished business with that first book, so I'm going to be working on it. The one thing I've learned about book writing is you better have a really strong outline, so that way once you're able to put a strong outline together, and you know what? I write my outlines on index cards like this, because that way all I have to do is just take the bullet points and then be able to put the words together. And, you know, I'm actually doing some stuff with Toastmasters here. The outspoken one is what they call it. I guess it's only appropriate of me anyways, outspoken Toastmasters. And they help you learn some great, they help you develop some public speaking skills. Do I love or hate ChatGPT? Oh, I like it, Jay. It gives a lot of good information. I'm learning about it. There's a lot of things that I'm still trying to learn too. So, but I love it. Okay, now you asked me about Howard Cosell and Herman Edwards. I think you know the answer to that anyway. So it is what it is.
And Jay, I'm going to say that yes, Scott and George. Scott met George many years ago up in Detroit. 45 years ago?
44, almost
well,
45.
44.9, sick to man, round it up. They may not do it in the Hall of Fame, but they can do it here. Go on, Eichhorn, get it right. I'm a lot easier than Ron Cameron was. He used to stick it to you worse than I am.
Oh, you had to mention that name.
Yeah, I did, because remember, it isn't that bad at this time with me and you, but back then it was rough. Although I put that schmuck in his place. You're too nice of a guy to put him in his place. Hey, Joe, if you ever work with this guy, of course you won't now because he's dead, okay? But you obviously read the book, what a character this guy was. I got news for you. You needed somebody like me to stick it to him because George Eichhorn's just a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Me?
Wow.
I don't care. I have an axe to grind. I'll let Cameron have it. He knew it too.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I did write a book, Jay, and it's called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Hey, look at this. Candy put it at 2 spots. And Scott's in the book. I'm in the book. Ernie Harrow wrote the foreword, the late, great Ernie. And yeah, there's a link to it at the end of my column. I write under the South Florida Tribune, under the Motor City Tribune. And I also contributed to JB's Sideline Sports, his website. And you can find me on 108 Stitches on Monday and this wonderful show on Wednesday and No Filter show. We have a lot of fun. And yeah, Scott and I go back a long time. WXYZ, ABC owned and operated with that knucklehead Cosell in New York at the time. But we didn't have him to kick around too much. Thank God we had our own local show that Scott and I worked on together.
Yeah, well, once we left Cameron, Eichhorn and I found other spots. We're going to actually name Jay our unofficial consultant here because, after all, he says, he does a great job coming on the show. So, hey, Jay, if you could go out there and help us get more YouTube subscribers and book sales, you bring your picture here. We'll put you on as a consultant for the South Florida Tribune. This guy's unbelievable. So, Jay, please get us more subscribers and help us sell some books, and I'll make sure you have a roll on here. Anyone that you want, my brother. Okay, but yeah, George and I go back to that guy a long ways. It was unbelievable. One of the things you learn when you deal with a character like this. All right, JBLS, let everybody know how they get a hold of you. We appreciate you, Jay. I try to recruit LOL.
So JB _ the program on X, sidelinesportsnet.com, the website designed by Candy for us over at Sideline Sports. Sideline Sports every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Can be heard in Atlanta Wednesday mornings on WDJY. Got something big in the works. Hopefully announce it early next week, but it's going to be close to home, so it's going to be good. And, a lot of good stuff going on. Bottom of the ninth for the Yankees. 1-run lead.
Yep, 3-2. Actually, I'm looking at it now. Middle of the ninth, one out. So Dodgers, meanwhile, lead the Padres 5-0. Bottom of the third over at Petco Park. I actually went to the old Jack Murphy Stadium, what they call it, Qualcomm Park, and saw the Chargers play there. It was unbelievable. I actually saw a Veteran Day game when the Lions took on the Chargers on Monday Night Football. That was unbelievable. It was a great thrill. And for those of you that don't know that, San Diego is a great military town. It really is. And a lot of people don't know that. So more power to them. I enjoy San Diego, one of my favorite places. Now, if you want to sit there and take a rivalry between LA and San Diego, I don't think that San Diego likes LA because they took the Chargers and the Clippers away. I don't think they were worried about the Clippers because they weren't any good anyway, but the Chargers. But that'll be for another topic as well. But yeah, San Diego's beautiful. And, Jay, if you ever been to La Jolla, oh, my goodness, that's heaven on earth. So, all right, Candy, why don't you go ahead and promote what you promote again? You talk about your other things with Fire Up, but you have other things going on as well.
Tuesday nights, you can catch the girls on Chicks and Salsa or 3 Chicks in a Pod. We basically there's 4 of us. They started as 3, and I joined the group. So instead of 3 Chicks in a Pod, we changed the name to Chicks and Salsa. There's 4 of us. We talk sports, a lot. We talk all kinds of sports. We do talk women's sports. We talk men's sports, NFL, college. We have the Queen of Hoops on our program. So we have Megan on there. We have Jennifer. We have Carrie and myself. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, the Chicks podcast.
And of course, you have your fire up every Thursday night that follows.
Fire up is tomorrow night, and you just never know what you're going to be hearing. Never know the topics ahead of time. Scott will tell you, never know the topics ahead of time. Once in a while, he'll grace us with his presence.
And also tomorrow, Fire Up Florida with myself and Rod Peterson. Rod Peterson is one of the finer hockey guys around, and he's also here with the Tribune. I was on his show last week as well. Yeah, Jay, you say you're from the West Coast. I actually lived in Phoenix. I like the West Coast. I really do. I just moved back to Florida because I wanted to be by my parents, and I'm glad I did because the time that I had with them was priceless. So, yeah, what a lot of fun tonight. We touched a lot of different things tonight. We want to appreciate everybody in the chat room. Jay, what can I say about you? You're as Jimmy Walker would say, good times dynamite, but I won't go out there and stretch the vocal cords to say it. So meanwhile, that concludes this edition of the Sports Exchange. On behalf of George Eichhorn, Candy Ebling, JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morgan, we're out the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Once again, as I said at the top of the show, and I'll say it again, for all my people in the Tampa Bay area, God bless, and I hope you guys are safe out there. My heart really is with you and anybody that's affected by Hurricane Milton. Take care. We'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday night, same time, same station. Good night, everybody. God bless. Be safe.
Good night.